What we're going to do now is do that backwards. We're going to see if we can figure out from the graph what was the center line. Using the maximum, the minimum, and the center line, what was the amplitude? If we know the period, can we find our b value? And then finally, can we figure out how it's been shifted left or right? So starting with this, where's our center line? Right at 1. One thing you can do is a check for your center line. So yes, it is at 1. Once you've got your center line, it should be the same distance to the maximum as it is to the minimum. So when I go from this center line at 1 to my maximum, can you see that this distance from here to here is 5? And if I went from my center line down to my minimum, that distance is also 5. So we know that we've got our center line correct. What is that distance called? That's our amplitude. So we know that our A value is 5. Now our B value, that makes a horizontal stretch or compression. And that's going to affect the period. If we're going to calculate the period of this one, we have to choose 2 points where it's the same, or however long it takes to repeat itself. So sometimes people like to use, in this case, maybe the minimum, because from that minimum to that minimum would be 1 period. Or maybe you choose a point on the center line. If I choose this point on the center line, that's the center line going down. So the next time on center line going down is until there. So whatever that distance is between 2 of those points is going to be our period. Now as far as counting this, on our graph, it's not hard to count our lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It goes 8 lines from one point to the other. But how much is one of those sections? So if we look at the grid that we're given, here's 0, here's pi over 6. What would one of the sections be? Pi over 12. So if I'm going 8 of those sections from one minimum to another, my period is going to be 8 pi over 12. Now, we have a formula that we were using saying that our period is equal to 2 pi over our b value. If you rearrange that formula a little bit, that means your b value is going to equal 2 pi over your period. And if our period is 8 pi over 12, how do we simplify this? How do we divide by a fraction? Multiply by the reciprocal. So this would be the same as 2 pi over 1 multiplied by 12 over 8 pi. Your pi's are going to cancel out. 24 divided by 8 is just 3. So that was a little bit more work than the d and the a value. We had to use our period and use the fact that we know our period is 2 pi over our b value to calculate that our b value would be 3. Yes? I got the 8 pi over 12 because I figured out that one of these sections from here to here was pi over 12. Okay? And then I took this point here and I started counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of those sections to get from my minimum to my other minimum. And since each of those sections was pi over 12, that makes 8 pi over 12. So now that we've got the d, the a, and the b value, the last thing we have to figure out is what is our c value. Now our c value is our shift. This question says they want your graph in terms of sine. Where does sine start? careful, it doesn't always start at 0. It starts always on the center line. So when it starts at 0 when there's no shift, but when there's a shift, your sine graph always starts on your center line. Your cos graph always starts at a maximum. And it starts on the center line going up. So we have to look at our graph here. Where do we have this graph starting on the center line going up? The first time that happens is right here. And that means that it's been shifted something to the right. How much to the right? Well, if we count these 1, 2, 3 to the right, well, each of those is pi over 12. So we know that our C value is 3 pi over 12, and it's that to the right. So now when we go to write our equation, y equals, we know that our amplitude is 5. Our B value is 3. To shift 3 pi over 12 to the right would be minus 3 pi over 12. And our D value is 1. So we can create an equation that way. This wouldn't be the only answer. There's more than one right answer depending on what you do for the shift. Someone else might have chosen this as the point starting on the center line going up, and that would have been correct as well. Another option would be taking the first point on the center line going down. If I did that, I would have a negative sine graph. And then I would shift it pi over 12 to the left. So you could do that as well. So you have more than one option when creating this equation. Question?
Isn't that supposed to be like 1 over 3?
No, because this is our actual B value.
Okay.
Good question. So we have the B value is 3. Do we have to write it as 1 over 3 because everything is a flip? No, because that's when we're using this formula here, period is 2 pi over B, we're using the actual B value as it would be.
All right.
So we're going to take some time to practice some of these. You can do questions 4 to 7. So 4, 5, 6, and 7.